Nuclear weapons. They've ended a world war and, strangely enough, played a role in ensuring another global conflict hasn't broken out. Yet with all the recent changes in the world, things don't seem as stable as they used to be. That leaves us wondering what would happen in the case of a nuclear holocaust. From the opening devastation to life afterwards, be sure to hit the subscribe button before they hit the launch button. The EMP. So, how will it all start? Well, your first sign that a nuclear strike is on the way could very well be when the lights go out. You see, unless you pay very close attention to the news, the first hint most people will get that an attack is inbound will be when the power fails and they can't update their status on Facebook or Instagram. It is believed the detonation of a nuclear weapon in the atmosphere will cause the power grid to fail and send dangerous electrical surges through the lines and into your house. Incoming. If you're very observant, you might just see the very first waves of nuclear warheads inbound. In fact, you may not even know what they are until it's too late. You see, when the warheads re-enter the Earth's atmosphere, they will look like meteorites streaking across the sky. It may just be the last thing you ever witness. That's because those warheads are just moments from detonation, which will either kill you outright or blind you from the spectacularly bright flash. The blasts. If you live in a major city or within several miles of a military base, you likely will not survive the immediate period of a nuclear exchange. Multiple times stronger than the bombs used on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the intense pressure, radiation, heat, and wind force from modern-day nuclear weaponry means anyone within several miles of a target is in a bad spot. Within a mile, expect to be vaporized from the intense heat. A little further away, the shockwave and high winds will knock over buildings and shatter windows. If you're unfortunate enough to be outside, you will also suffer severe burns from the flash of the explosion. The immediate aftermath. So, you survived the initial blasts. Congratulations! Depending on where you live, you could be in two very different worlds. In the country, you may have broken windows, suffered a few burns, and have a horizon fresh with mushroom clouds. If you're in or near the city, expect to see fires, mass casualties, and the constant threat of falling debris, trees, and pretty much anything else you can think of. Except for nuclear zombies. Those come much later. Fallout. No, not the video game. We're talking about the radioactive particles and dust that get thrown up into the atmosphere after a nuclear blast. These start to fall back down to Earth hours after a blast, and depending on the winds, can travel hundreds of kilometers. Areas that experience numerous strikes will obviously produce more fallout, and locations downwind of these targets will be coated soon after in deadly dust and soot that will burn and silently kill any living things. What are your options? Well, you can either wear a suit of thick lead or stay inside, deep under cover. Fire and smoke. In the aftermath of a nuclear exchange taking place, the nuclear holocaust will be characterized by raging fires and thick plumes of smoke. Think the California wildfires are bad? That's nothing. Hundreds of fires will have been touched off all over the planet and rage out of control because there simply won't be any way to control them. Scientists say these fires will release 150 million tons of smoke into the atmosphere. Within weeks, the sun will be largely blocked out and the days will be noticeably darker all over the planet. Global cooling. Scientists have long been convinced a nuclear war would lead to massive global cooling. After all, fill the atmosphere with a lot of smoke and dust, and things are bound to get colder, right? Well, it's more disturbing than that. You see, researchers ran a simulation that had just 100 small Hiroshima-sized bombs being detonated. They predicted within 5 years the Earth would be 1.5 degrees cooler and crop growing seasons would be shortened by up to 40 days. You might not think that sounds like a lot. However, keep in mind the size of the test and the reality that modern nuclear weapons are substantially more powerful, and there are thousands of them. Famine and illness. If you survive the blasts and the fallout of a nuclear holocaust, you can expect to face some new challenges. What's crazy about this is that areas that once produced so much food and had eradicated much of the disease that plagued the world will now face famine and illness on scales never before witnessed. Sure, there will be less mouths to feed, but a combination of colder weather, lack of sunshine, and a breakdown in the transportation network that we take for granted every day means food could be hard to come by. Add into this diseases from contaminated water and increases in cancer rates, and it's not likely going to be an easy or fun life. Scavenging and crime. Cue the images of Mad Max and Fallout here, right? Oh, maybe not. While pop culture always seems to show us breaking down into lawless bands of looters and murderers, there's evidence to suggest the post-nuclear war world could be different. After all, sure, there would be less food and other resources, but there would also be hundreds of millions fewer people competing for said resources. We're not saying that there won't be looting and violence, just that some researchers and scientists think it would all balance itself out after a few decades as we rebuild. A new world. Long after a large-scale exchange of nuclear weapons, the world would be a different place. It's generally agreed that much of the northern hemisphere would be devastated through the detonation of warheads, radioactive fallout, and raging fires. Indeed, even if humans survived, many species of plants and animals would likely go extinct. While no place on the planet would escape the nuclear winter, it is agreed that many areas in the southern hemisphere would survive the nuclear exchange and be better off to face the following decades of rebuilding. You know, we hear southern Peru is quite nice this time of year. Well, that was uplifting. Since we don't want to leave you on a downer, how about checking out our video on unusual animal friendships? Aw, we guarantee it. Or the many other videos that we have at The Richest will make you smile. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you around.